The Galactic Council chamber was a circle. 7 tiers of seats rose from the central floor, each tier belonging to a different species. The stone was ancient. It had been worn smooth by thousands of years of footsteps. The ceiling was a dome of transparent aluminum that showed the stars drifting past, a constant reminder that the council existed outside the boundaries of any single world. The chamber was over 10,000 years old. It had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. It had witnessed wars and treaties and discoveries that had shaped the galaxy. It had witnessed the birth of alliances and the death of empires. It had witnessed species rise from primitive savagery to become among the most advanced in the galaxy. And on this day, it witnessed Devon Michaels. Devon Michaels was 65 years old. He had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 30 years. His hair was gray now, streaked with the white of age and stress. His face was lined with wrinkles that came from decades of diplomatic battles. His back was straight, a habit he had developed early in his career when he realized that humans were judged more harshly than any other species in the chamber. He had seen things in those 30 years that would have broken a lesser man. He had seen his proposals ignored, set aside without so much as a discussion. He had seen his requests tabled indefinitely, buried under mountains of bureaucratic procedure. He had seen human scientists and engineers and doctors offer their expertise to the galaxy, only to be told that their contributions were not needed. That was the Galactic Council. That was the body that humans had been begging for respect from for 150 years. The Zenthari had discovered Earth. They had found humanity in the year 2150, when a Zenthari survey ship had picked up radio signals from a small blue planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. The Zenthari were a peaceful species. They were curious. They were patient. They had helped humanity take its first steps into the wider galaxy. The first contact had been cautious. The Zenthari had sent a delegation to Earth, led by a diplomat named Selena Voss. She had stood before the United Earth government and introduced herself. She had explained that humanity was not alone in the universe. She had explained that there was a Galactic Council, a body that governed relations between the species of the galaxy. She had explained that humanity could become a member, but only after proving that they were ready. It had taken 30 years for humans to prove they were not a threat. 30 years of inspections and observations and negotiations. 30 years of being treated like children who might burn themselves on the stove. 30 years of Zenthari scientists studying human psychology, human sociology, human biology. 30 years of humans proving that they could be peaceful, that they could cooperate, that they could contribute to the galaxy. In 2180, humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Junior members. No voting rights on major decisions. No veto power. No real influence. 150 years had passed since then. Humans had spread across dozens of star systems. They had built colonies on worlds that had never known the touch of intelligent life. They had constructed space stations that orbited gas giants and red dwarfs and neutron stars. They had established research outposts on the edges of known space. They had thrown themselves into the work of the galaxy. Human scientists filled the bottom ranks of every research institution, doing the grunt work of data collection and analysis that established species found beneath them. Human doctors staffed the clinics on backwater worlds where no established species wanted to practice. Human engineers maintained the aging infrastructure that kept council worlds running, patching and repairing systems that had been built centuries before humans had discovered fire. Human pilots flew the cargo routes that no one else wanted, the long hauls to dangerous systems where ships went missing and crews were never found. The council noticed. Of course they noticed. But they saw it as nothing more than junior members trying to prove themselves. Eager servants doing what servants did. The humans worked hard because they wanted to be accepted. That was the thinking. That was always the thinking. Devon remembered the specific slights. He remembered the time a human engineering crew had maintained a council station's life support systems for 30 years without a single failure, and when they requested a safety upgrade, the request was buried in a subcommittee and never seen again. He remembered the time a human medical team had spent a decade running the only clinic on a Draxian frontier world, and when the Draxian government published a report on the colony's healthcare improvements, the human contribution was not mentioned once. He remembered the time a human cargo captain had completed more supply runs through the Vorith Nebula than any pilot in the sector, and was denied a docking permit at a council hub because her credentials were from a junior member species. He remembered the time a human agricultural specialist had developed a drought-resistant grain that saved a Kryn colony from starvation, and the Kryn government credited the breakthrough to galactic agricultural science, without naming the human who did the work. He remembered the time a human trading company had been forced to accept unfair terms because they had no diplomatic leverage. These were not isolated incidents. They were the pattern of 150 years. A pattern of dismissal. A pattern of disrespect. A pattern of treating humans as if they were not quite worthy of the galaxy's attention. And still, they were dismissed. Still, they were ignored. Still, they were treated as children who had not yet earned a seat at the table. Devon Michaels had had enough. "Honorable Chancellor," Devon said. His voice carried across the chamber. He had learned to project his voice 30 years ago. He had learned to speak slowly and clearly and deliberately. He had learned that humans were judged more harshly than other species. Every word mattered. Every gesture mattered. Every pause mattered. The High Chancellor of the Galactic Council was a Zenthari named Voreth. He was 450 cycles old, which was roughly 225 human years. His skin was a deep purple, which indicated his age and wisdom among the Zenthari. He had been Chancellor for over 100 cycles, and before that he had served as the Zenthari ambassador for another 80 cycles. He had seen more ambassadors come and go than he could remember. He had seen wars and treaties and moments of great triumph and great tragedy. He was calm. He was measured. He was fair. But he was also cautious. He understood the politics of the council better than anyone. He knew which species held power. He knew which species held resources. He knew that justice was not always the highest priority in the chamber. "The human ambassador may speak," Chancellor Voreth said. Devon stepped forward. He held a data pad in his hand. On it was a proposal. A simple proposal. A request to build a permanent research station in orbit of Rigel 6, a gas giant in the Rigel system. The system was unclaimed. No species had ever filed a claim. It was neutral space. It was perfect for scientific study. "Honorable Chancellor, esteemed ambassadors," Devon said. "I come before you today with a proposal from the United Earth government. We request permission to construct a permanent research station in orbit of Rigel 6 in the Rigel system. The station would be used to study the origins of the Rigel system, which is one of the most fascinating stellar formations in this sector." He paused. He looked around the chamber. He saw the ambassadors from a dozen species. Some were listening. Some were not. Some were talking among themselves. Some were looking at data pads. Some were sleeping. There was Ambassador Selena Voss of the Zenthari. She was one of the few who always listened. Her skin was a calm shade of blue, indicating interest and attention. She had been the Zenthari ambassador for 50 years. She had been present at first contact with humanity. She had watched humans grow and struggle and achieve. She had always treated humans with respect, even when other species did not. There was Ambassador Morveth of the Draxians. Draxians were bureaucratic by nature. They loved rules and procedures. They loved committees and subcommittees and working groups. Morveth had been the Draxian ambassador for 30 years. His skin was a dull green, which was neutral for his species. He was looking at his data pad, not at Devon. There was Ambassador Vorex of the Varikans. Varikans were avian, with feathers instead of hair and hollow bones that made them light enough to fly in standard gravity. Vorex was a tall, slender being with blue feathers and large eyes that could see into the ultraviolet spectrum. He had been the Varikan ambassador for 25 years. He was watching Devon with interest. There was Ambassador Thrax of the Ortani. Ortani were a silicon-based species from a high-gravity world. They moved slowly and spoke slowly and thought slowly. Their lifespan was measured in thousands of years. Thrax had been the Ortani ambassador for 200 years. He was sleeping. There was Ambassador Lyra of the Kintari. Kintari were a species of energy beings who existed in containment suits. They communicated through modulated light patterns. Lyra had been the Kintari ambassador for 40 years. Her suit was glowing a steady blue, which meant she was paying attention. There was Ambassador Goreth of the Kryn. Kryn were reptilian, with scales that ranged from green to brown to black. Goreth was a large specimen, even for his species. He had been the Kryn ambassador for 15 years. He was talking to the ambassador next to him. There was Ambassador Solara of the Luminari. Luminari were amphibious, with smooth skin and large eyes. Solara had been the Luminari ambassador for 20 years. She was looking at Devon with what might have been curiosity. There was Ambassador Jorvan of the Xylos. Xylos were insectoid, with exoskeletons and compound eyes. Jorvan had been the Xylos ambassador for 10 years. He was cleaning his antennae. And there was Ambassador Torvin Vox of the Krollian hegemony. He was not listening. He was never listening when humans spoke. This was what Devon had dealt with for 30 years. The Rigel system has been studied by our scientists for decades, Devon continued. We believe that a permanent research presence would benefit all species. The data collected could be shared with the Council. The findings could advance our understanding of stellar formation and planetary development. He finished. He waited. The chamber was silent. Then the Krollian ambassador stood up. Torvin Vox had been the Krollian ambassador for 40 years. He had not changed. He was still arrogant. He was still aggressive. He was still convinced that Krollians were superior to all other species. The Rigel system belongs to the Krollian hegemony, Torvin said. His voice was a deep rumble, like stones grinding together. We have historical claims to that region of space. The humans have no right to build anything there. Devon did not flinch. He had expected this. Torvin claimed every system that anyone else proposed. It was his standard tactic. Claim everything, concede nothing, and dare anyone to prove him wrong. Honorable Chancellor, Devon said, the Rigel system is not on record as belonging to any species. There is no claim filed. There is no historical documentation. The Krollian hegemony has no more right to Rigel than any other species present. Torvin's skin darkened. His ridges tightened. You dare to question my word? I dare to question the truth, Devon said. The Rigel system is unclaimed. You know it. I know it. Everyone in this chamber knows it. You claim every system that anyone proposes because you believe everything in the galaxy belongs to Krollians by default. The chamber stirred. Ambassadors turned to look at Devon. Some were surprised. Some were amused. Some were waiting to see what would happen next. Ambassador Voss of the Zenthari shifted in her seat. Her skin flickered with concern. She knew what Torvin was capable of. Ambassador Morvith looked up from his data pad. His skin shifted from green to yellow, which meant he was interested. The human raises a valid procedural point, he said. If the Rigel system has not been claimed, then it is neutral territory. The Krollian hegemony cannot simply assert ownership without documentation. The Krollian hegemony does not need documentation, Torvin said. Our word is sufficient. Your word is not sufficient, Morvith said. Not when it contradicts the official records of this council. Torvin's skin darkened further. The ridges on his arms began to pulse, a sign of aggression in Krollian body language. He stepped out from behind his podium and walked across the floor. Devon stepped forward. You Krollians are all the same. You believe you can intimidate everyone to do your bidding. But humans aren't intimidated by physical threats. If you were a civilized species, you would understand that. He moved with the deliberate slowness of a predator. His forearms hung at his sides, but his hands were open, ready to strike. The other ambassadors watched him. Some tensed. Some leaned forward. Some looked away. He stopped in front of Devon. He was nearly a meter taller. He looked down at the human ambassador with contempt. You are a fool, Torvin said. You humans are always fools. You come here with your proposals and your requests and you're begging for scraps. You do not belong here. You will never belong here. Devon did not move. He did not speak. He just looked at Torvin. Torvin raised one of his 4 hands. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The chamber was silent. Everyone knew what was about to happen. The hand came down. The impact was enormous. A Krollian strike could shatter bone. It could kill a human if aimed correctly. Torvin had not aimed to kill. He had aimed to humiliate. Devon staggered. Pain exploded across his face. Blood trickled from his lip. A thin line of red ran down his chin and dripped onto the floor of the chamber, where it mingled with the dust of 10,000 years of galactic history. But he did not fall. He steadied himself. He wiped the blood from his lip with the back of his hand. He looked at the blood on his fingers. It was red, human blood, staining his skin, bright against the pale of his hand. Then he looked at Torvin, and he smiled. The Krollian hegemony has never won an argument in this chamber, Devon said. His voice was calm, conversational. You dominate through intimidation, not persuasion. You control resources, not ideas. When a species like mine challenges you with facts, you have no response but violence. And now the whole galaxy has seen it. Bullies are all the same, Devon said. Big and loud and full of bravado. They strike because they cannot argue. They hit because they cannot persuade. You are a bully, Ambassador Torvin. And like all bullies, you will eventually find yourself alone. The chamber erupted. Ambassadors stood. They shouted. Some called for order. Some called for Torvin to be removed. Some called for Devon to be silenced. The chamber was chaos. Ambassador Voss was on her feet. Her skin had shifted to a deep red, the Zenthari equivalent of anger. This is unacceptable, she shouted. An ambassador has been struck in this chamber. This cannot be allowed to stand. Ambassador Morvath was also standing. His skin was a bright yellow, indicating agitation. Protocol has been violated. The Krollian ambassador must be censured. Torvin Vox has struck a human ambassador in this chamber. There must be consequences. Torvin turned to face the chamber. The human insulted me. He questioned my honor. He questioned the honor of the Krollian hegemony. I had every right to defend myself. You defended yourself with violence against words, Ambassador Voss said. That is not defense. That is aggression. The human should not have spoken out of turn, Torvin said. Ambassador Voss's skin flickered. You mean the human should not have stated the truth? That is your position, Ambassador Torvin? That truth should be silenced to protect your pride. Chancellor Vorith raised his hand. His skin shifted from purple to a deep red, which was the Zenthari equivalent of anger. Order, he shouted. His voice carried across the chamber with an authority that silenced everyone. He looked at Torvin. Ambassador Torvin, you have broken protocol. You have struck a fellow ambassador in the council chamber. This is a violation of the oldest rules of this body. Torvin did not look ashamed. The human insulted me. The human stated facts, Chancellor Vorith said. You will apologize to Ambassador Michaels. You will do so now. Torvin's skin darkened further. I will not. Chancellor Vorith's skin shifted again. You will, or I will have you removed from this chamber. I will not apologize to a human, Torvin said. They are nothing. They are junior members. They have no standing to question a senior ambassador. They have been members of this council for only 150 years. That is nothing. My species has been here for 10,000 years. We built this council. We wrote its rules. We shaped its history. Humans have done the labor. They farm our grain. They fix our machines. They fly our cargo. That is not accomplishment. That is service. That is what junior members are for. Chancellor Vorith's skin shifted to a deeper shade of red. Ambassador Torvin, you are testing my patience. I am stating facts, Torvin said. The humans have been here for a century and a half. They have contributed nothing of value. Their proposals are insignificant. Their requests are trivial. Their presence in this chamber is an insult to the species who have been here for millennia. Devon spoke. His voice was calm. We have cured diseases that have plagued your species for centuries. We have designed engines that power your ships. We have grown food that feeds your people. We have built networks that connect your worlds. We have fought your wars. We have died alongside your children. We have done nothing? No, we have done everything. And you have given us nothing in return. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Jorvin of the Xylos flicked his antennae. They speak as if labor is the same as leadership. The servants clean the temple. That does not make them priests. Chancellor Vorith turned to Devon. Ambassador Michaels, do you have anything to say? Devon's lip was still bleeding. The blood had dripped onto his collar. His suit was stained. But he stood straight. He did not waver. Honorable Chancellor, Devon said. The Krollian hegemony controls the mining rights on 30 different worlds. Those minerals are used to make the casings for FTL drive cores. Every ship in the galaxy depends on those minerals. The Council protects the Krollians because the Council needs the Krollians. That is the truth. That is why Ambassador Torvin can strike a human and face no consequences. That is why he can claim any system he wants and face no challenge. That is why the Council will do nothing. He paused. He looked at the ambassadors. I am not asking for justice, Devon said. I am not asking for fairness. I am asking for the truth to be spoken. The Rigel system is unclaimed. The Krollians have no right to it. And this council will do nothing because it never does anything when the Krollians are involved. The chamber erupted again. Ambassador Voss stepped forward. Honorable Chancellor, I demand that the Krollian ambassador be censured for his actions. He has violated council protocol. He has physically assaulted a fellow ambassador. This cannot be ignored. Ambassador Morvith nodded. I second the demand. The procedures of this council must be upheld. Ambassador Thrax of the Ortani had woken up. He spoke slowly, his voice like grinding stones. The Ortani have seen many incidents in this chamber over the centuries. We have seen species rise and fall. We have seen justice done and justice ignored. The Krollian ambassador has indeed violated protocol. But the human ambassador also spoke in a manner that could be considered inflammatory. He spoke the truth, Ambassador Voss said. The truth can be inflammatory, Ambassador Thrax said. Ambassador Solara of the LumniHFY spoke. Her voice was soft, like water flowing over rocks. The LumniHFY have observed that this council has a pattern of favoring the powerful over the powerless. The Krollians control critical resources. The humans control nothing. The council protects the Krollians because it needs them. The human ambassador has merely stated what everyone in this chamber already knows. The human ambassador has disrupted the decorum of this chamber, said Ambassador Jorvin of the Xylos. His antennae were twitching. He should be censured for his behavior. His behavior? Ambassador Voss said. He was struck. He did not strike back. He defended himself with words, not violence. His words were inflammatory, Ambassador Jorvin said. His words were true, Ambassador Voss said. The argument spread. Ambassadors took sides. Some supported Devon. Some supported Torvin. Some called for order. Some called for censure. Some called for sanctions. Some called for mediation. Some called for a committee to study the issue. Chancellor Vorith raised his hand again. The chamber fell silent. We will put this to a censure vote, he said. The human ambassador has been accused of disrupting the decorum of this chamber. We will vote on whether to censure the human delegation for a period of 20 years. Devon closed his eyes. 20 years. If the censure passed, humans would not be allowed to present proposals, make requests, or speak in the chamber for 20 years. It was a death sentence for human influence on the council. But he had known this was coming. He had known the moment Torvin raised his hand. He had known the moment he smiled. The vote was taken. The results appeared on the central display. Devon looked at them. 60% in favor, 40% against. The Krollians and their allies had voted for censure. The Zenthari and their allies had voted against. The rest had abstained. Ambassador Michaels, Chancellor Vorith said, your delegation is censured for a period of 20 galactic standard years. You may not present proposals, make requests, or address this chamber during that time. Devon nodded. He did not argue. He did not protest. He did not plead. He simply gathered his data pad, turned, and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the council continued its business as if nothing had happened. The news reached Earth within hours. Devon's transmission was played across every news network. Humans saw their ambassador being struck. They saw the blood. They saw the smile. They saw the censure. And they were angry. President Leon Reston was 57 years old. He had been president of the United Earth government for 4 years and had recently been re-elected. He was a pragmatic man. He was not a firebrand. He believed in diplomacy. He believed in patience. He believed that humans could earn their place in the galaxy through hard work and cooperation. But he had limits. He called a special session of the United Earth Council. The council chamber was on Earth, in Geneva. It was a modern building of glass and steel, built to symbolize humanity's openness to the galaxy. The walls were lined with screens showing the faces of council members who could not be present in person. The chamber was full. Representatives from every human world and colony had gathered. Some were in person, some were on screens. All of them had seen the footage. All of them were angry. We have a decision to make, President Reston said. The Galactic Council has censured us for 20 years. We cannot present proposals. We cannot speak. We cannot participate. We are effectively silenced. Admiral James Carter was 58 years old. He was the commander of the United Earth Defense Fleet. He was smart. He was brilliant. He was an excellent tactician. He had served in the fleet for 30 years. He had seen the threat that the galaxy posed to humanity. Mr. President, Admiral Carter said, we have been patient for 150 years. We have followed the rules. We have contributed to the Council. We have fought alongside Council species. We have died alongside Council species. And what has it gotten us? A censure, a slap on the wrist, a reminder that we are not wanted. What are you suggesting? Asked Council member Elena Vasquez. She was the representative from the South American Federation. She was 52 years old. She had been a council member for 10 years. She was known for being cautious, for weighing every option before making a decision. "I am suggesting that we leave," Admiral Carter said. "We withdraw from the Galactic Council. We recall all humans to human space. We cease all trade with Council species. We show them what we are worth." The chamber went silent. Council member James Okonkwo stood. He was the representative from the African Union. He was 60 years old. He had been a council member for 15 years. He was known for his steady voice and his unwavering commitment to human dignity. "Leave the council," he said. "The question is not whether it is unprecedented. The question is whether we are willing to accept being treated as less than we are." Admiral Carter nodded. "Then we leave." Council member Olaf Johansson of the European Union spoke. He was 65 years old. He had been a council member for 20 years. He was known for his pragmatic approach to interstellar relations. "If we leave, we lose all access to galactic markets. We lose access to galactic technology. We lose access to galactic knowledge. We would be isolating ourselves from the rest of the universe. We would be isolating ourselves from a system that treats us as second-class citizens," Admiral Carter said. Council member Fatima al-Rashid of the Middle Eastern Confederation spoke. She was 48 years old. She had been a council member for 8 years. She was known for her sharp intellect and her ability to find solutions where others saw only problems. "There is another option. We could negotiate. We could demand that the censure be removed. We could demand that Torvin Vox be sanctioned. We could use our economic leverage to force the council to treat us fairly." "We have no economic leverage," Admiral Carter said. "We are junior members. We have no voting rights. We have no veto power. We have no influence. The council can ignore us because we cannot do anything to them." "That is not entirely true," Council member al-Rashid said. "Human agriculture produces food that is essential to multiple species. Human medical technology is used across the galaxy. Human engineers maintain critical infrastructure on dozens of worlds. If we withdrew, we would cause significant disruption." "That is exactly my point," Admiral Carter said. "We have more power than we think. We just have not used it." Council member Kwame Osei of the West African Coalition stood. He was 70 years old. He had been a council member for 25 years. He was known as a historian who had studied the rise and fall of civilizations on Earth. "There is precedent for what the Admiral suggests. On old Earth, nations that controlled essential resources frequently used that leverage to gain political concessions. The oil embargoes of the 20th century are a classic example. We withdrew from global agreements when they no longer served our interests. We imposed sanctions when diplomacy failed. We are not strangers to this kind of strategy." Council member Ana Castillo of the Central American Union spoke. She was 45 years old. She had been a council member for 6 years. She represented the colonies on Mars and the asteroid belt. "My constituents are the ones who build the ships that carry goods across the galaxy. They are the ones who mine the asteroids that supply raw materials. They are the ones who pilot the freighters that keep the galactic economy running. If we withdraw, they will lose their livelihoods. We need to consider the economic impact on our own people. We will lose our livelihoods either way," Admiral Carter said. "If we stay, we will continue to be treated as second-class citizens. Our children will be treated as second-class citizens. Our grandchildren will be treated as second-class citizens. Is that the future you want for your constituents?" Council member Viktor Petrov of the Eurasian Federation spoke. He was 62 years old. He had been a council member for 18 years. He was known for his military background and his strategic thinking. The Admiral raises a valid point. "We have been patient for 150 years. Patience has not served us. The Council has shown us time and again that they do not respect us. They do not value us. They do not see us as equals. Why should we continue to participate in a system that treats us as inferior?" "Because we have no other options," Council member Johansson said. "We have many options," Admiral Carter said. "We just have not been willing to use them." Council member Thomas Wright of the North American Union stood. He was 59 years old. He had been a council member for 14 years. He was known as a moderate who believed in measured responses. "If we withdraw, we cannot simply return when we feel like it. The council will not welcome us back. They will make us pay a price. They will demand concessions. We need to be prepared for that. We will not return until our conditions are met," Admiral Carter said. Full membership. Removal of the censure. Sanctions against the Krollians. If the council wants us back, they will have to meet those conditions. And if they do not, Council Member Wright asked, then we will remain independent, Admiral Carter said. We will build our own alliances. We will trade with species who respect us. We will show the galaxy that humanity does not need the Council to thrive. Council Member Grace O'Brien of the Australian Dominion spoke. She was 51 years old. She had been a council member for 9 years. She was known for her blunt assessments. Let us be honest with ourselves. We are afraid. We are afraid of what will happen if we leave the council. We are afraid of isolation. We are afraid of retaliation. We are afraid of the unknown. But we should be more afraid of staying. We should be more afraid of continuing to accept a status quo that treats us as inferior. The Admiral is suggesting a gamble, Council Member Maria Santos of the Pacific Alliance said. She was 55 years old. She had been a council member for 12 years. She was known for her patience and her belief in diplomacy. A very large gamble. If we lose everything. Our place in the galaxy. Our access to technology. Our ability to trade. Our future. Sometimes the biggest gamble is the one you do not take, Admiral Carter said. The debate went on for hours. Council members argued. Some agreed with Admiral Carter. Some agreed with Council Member Al-Rashid. Some wanted to wait. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to fight. But through it all, one thing was clear. Everyone in that chamber was angry. Everyone had seen the footage. Everyone had seen Devon Michaels being struck. Everyone had seen the blood. Everyone had seen the smile. Everyone had seen the censure. Everyone had had enough. Council Member James Okonkwo stood again. His voice was steady. His eyes were hard. A human ambassador was struck in the council chamber today, he said. The council did nothing. They censured the victim. They protected the aggressor. This is not the first time this council has failed us. It will not be the last unless we do something about it. I vote to withdraw. Devon Michaels spoke via video link from the council station. He was still in his quarters. His lip had been treated, but the bruise was visible, purple and yellow across his jaw. Mr. President, Devon said, I have served as ambassador for 30 years. I have watched us be ignored. I have watched us be dismissed. I have watched us be treated as children. And today, I was struck in the council chamber. The ambassador who struck me was not censured. He was not sanctioned. He was told to apologize, and he refused. And I was censured for defending myself. He paused. I am tired, Devon said. I am tired of begging for respect. I am tired of being patient. I am tired of hoping that if we are good enough and quiet enough and obedient enough, they will finally accept us. What do you recommend? President Reston asked. I recommend we leave, Devon said. We withdraw from the council. We recall our people. We stop trading. We show them that when you take species for granted, you lose everything they carried without ever realizing the weight. President Reston looked at the council. He saw the faces of the representatives. Some were angry. Some were scared. Some were hopeful. Take a vote, he said. The vote was taken. The United Earth Council voted unanimously to withdraw from the Galactic Council. The message was sent to the council the next day. To the Honorable High Chancellor and the esteemed members of the Galactic Council, the message read, The United Earth Government hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately. All human representatives are being recalled to human space. All trade between human worlds and council species will cease within 30 days. We have spent 150 years seeking your respect. We have been patient. We have been cooperative. We have been loyal. And we have been dismissed. The censure of Ambassador Devon Michaels was the final insult. A human ambassador was struck in your chamber. The ambassador who struck him faced no consequences. The human who was struck was censured. We will not return until we are granted full membership in the council. The censure is removed, and the Krollian hegemony is sanctioned for its aggression. Until then, humanity stands alone. The message was signed by President Leon Reston and the entire United Earth Council. The response from the council was immediate. Chancellor Vorith read the message aloud to the assembled ambassadors. There was laughter. There were dismissive comments. The Krollian ambassador called it a tantrum. They will be back, Torvin said. Where else can they go? They are nothing without the council. Who will feed them? Who will trade with them? They have spent a century and a half being useful to us. We have not spent a single day being useful to them. Ambassador Voss of the Zenthari stood. Honorable Chancellor, I urge caution. The humans are not bluffing. I have known them for 180 years, since first contact. They do not make threats lightly. If they say they will withdraw, they will withdraw. They are junior members, Ambassador Jorvan of the Xylos said. They cannot withdraw. It is unprecedented. Unprecedented does not mean impossible, Ambassador Voss said. Chancellor Vorith considered. He had been chancellor for over 100 cycles. He had seen many species threaten to leave the council. None had ever followed through. But the humans were different. They were new. They were unpredictable. They had a tendency to do things that other species considered impossible. Send a response, he said. Inform the humans that their withdrawal is noted. Inform them that the council wishes them well. Inform them that the door remains open for their return. And the censure? Ambassador Voss asked. Chancellor Vorith understood the politics. If he rescinded the censure, he would be seen as weak. If he upheld it, he kept his power. The censure stands, Chancellor Vorith said. The humans must learn that they cannot disrupt the decorum of this chamber without consequences. The response was sent. It was brief. It was dismissive. It was everything that humans had come to expect from the council. The next 30 days were chaos. Human ships stopped delivering goods to council worlds. Human freighters that had been carrying food, medicine, technology, and raw materials were recalled to human space. Human engineers who had been maintaining critical infrastructure on council worlds were pulled out. Human doctors who had been running clinics on a dozen alien planets were brought home. Human scientists who had been collaborating on research projects across the galaxy terminated their partnerships. The withdrawal was systematic. It was organized. It was complete. On the council station, human staff packed their belongings and boarded the last shuttles to human ships. They left behind empty offices, empty laboratories, empty quarters. The station felt hollow without them. On Krollian mining worlds, human engineers shut down their systems and handed over control to local operators. The operators did not know how to maintain the systems. Within weeks, production began to slow. On Zenthari medical worlds, human doctors treated their last patients and said their goodbyes. The Zenthari staff watched them leave with fear in their eyes. They knew what was coming. On Draxian administrative worlds, human software engineers transferred their knowledge as fast as they could. But the systems were too complex. The knowledge was too deep. The Draxians would not be able to maintain them. On Varikan trade hubs, human cargo ships loaded their last loads and departed for human space. The docks fell silent. The warehouses emptied. The traders who had relied on human shipping for decades found themselves stranded. Human colonies that had been established on council worlds were evacuated. Families packed their belongings and boarded ships for human space. They left behind homes and businesses and friends. They left behind lives they had built over generations. The human withdrawal created a vacuum, and vacuums in the galactic economy were not filled quickly. The first sign of trouble came from the Krollian homeworld. Krollians ate a diet that was heavily supplemented by human-grown grains. Human agriculture had developed strains of grain that were more nutritious and easier to grow than native Krollian crops. Human farms on agricultural worlds like New Eden and Harvest produced 70% of the grain that the Krollian hegemony imported. When the trade stopped, the grain stopped. Within 2 weeks, grain prices on the Krollian homeworld had tripled. Within a month, there were shortages. Within 2 months, there were riots. The Krollian government appealed to the council. They demanded that the humans be forced to resume trade. They demanded that sanctions be imposed. They demanded that the council do something. But the council could not force the humans to do anything. The humans were not members anymore. They were not bound by council rules. They were not subject to council authority. Every species felt the absence. For centuries, the work had been distributed by status. The senior species governed. The junior species served. Humans had been assigned the lowest work, the maintenance, the transport, the agriculture, the frontier medicine. The jobs that required endless hours and offered no glory. The jobs that established species had long since automated or outsourced to whoever was desperate enough to take them. The council had never considered what would happen if the servants walked out. They had never needed to. No junior species had ever left before. But the humans had. And now the work was not being done. Grain fields sat unharvested. Waste recycling systems on orbital stations blinked warnings that no one knew how to silence. Cargo ships remained docked because there were no pilots willing to fly the dangerous routes. The machines still ran, but the hands that maintained them were gone. The council held emergency sessions. Ambassadors demanded action. They demanded that the humans be forced to return. They demanded that sanctions be imposed. They demanded that the council do something. But the council could not do anything. The humans were not members anymore. They were not bound by council rules. They were not subject to council authority. We need to negotiate, Ambassador Voss said. We need to send delegates to Earth. We need to ask them to return. Ask them, Torvin said. We do not ask humans for anything. We demand. And if they refuse? Ambassador Voss asked. What will you do then? Invade them? You have the ships now, but every hull you lose is one you cannot replace. Every core that fails is one you cannot rebuild. You would be spending your last currency on a war you cannot win. Torvin had no answer. But the idea had been planted. 6 months passed. The galaxy was in ruins. Trade had collapsed. Species were starving. Medical systems had failed. Governments had fallen. And still, the humans did not return. The Krollian hegemony was the hardest hit. Their grain supplies were gone. Their economy had collapsed. Their people were rioting in the streets. The Krollian High Command was desperate. They needed the humans to return. They needed the trade to resume. They needed the suffering to end. But the humans would not return until their conditions were met. And the council refused to meet them. Torvin Vox stood before the Krollian High Command. He was no longer the arrogant bully he had been. He was desperate. He was cornered. He was willing to do whatever it took to save his people. We must attack, Torvin said. The humans will not listen to reason. They will not respond to negotiation. They only understand force. If we attack their colonies, they will be forced to defend themselves. They will be forced to negotiate. They will be forced to return. The Krollian High Command Chamber was a circle of stone and shadow. 7 generals sat in raised seats, their ridges pulsing, their claws tapping against ancient armrests. General Morith, the eldest, spoke first. You ask us to start a war with a species that feeds us, Torvin. A species that powers our ships. A species that our own council cannot control. They do not feed us, Torvin said. They supplied us. There is a difference. We paid for their grain. We paid for their services. We owe them nothing. Our people are starving, General Vorix said. Our economy is in ruins. And you want to start a war with the species that was keeping us alive? If we attack, we lose any chance of them ever coming back. We have already lost it. Torvin slammed his fist against the stone. The grain has stopped. The engineers are gone. What more can they take from us? Our pride, that is already gone, sitting in this chamber, afraid of a species that has been in space for less than 2 centuries. General Morith's ridges flattened. You speak of pride. You speak of action. But you do not speak of victory. Can we win this war, Torvin? Torvin hesitated. It was barely a flicker, but they all saw it. We can hurt them, he said. We can remind them that war has a cost. We can force them to the table. That is not victory, General Vorix said. That is desperation dressed as strategy. We are desperate, Torvin shouted. Our economy is collapsing. Our people are rioting. Our allies are abandoning us. The Zenthari have already sent delegates to Earth to beg. Do you understand what that means? The Council is choosing humans over us. If we do not act now, we will have nothing left to act with. General Morith was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. The humans have never fought a war against a Council species. They do not know what real warfare looks like. They have fought pirates. They have fought border skirmishes. They have never faced a species that has been waging war for 10,000 years. Torvin seized on the opening. Exactly. They are soft. They are comfortable. They have spent a century and a half being servants. They do not know how to fight. One strike, and they will break. One strike, and they will beg to return to the old arrangement. And if they do not break? General Vorix asked. Torvin looked at him. Then we will have made our point. And the Council will have no choice but to side with us against the species that attacked first. General Morith looked around the chamber. He saw the faces of the other generals. He saw fear. He saw doubt. He saw the hunger of a species that had been backed into a corner. Prepare the fleet, he said. The attack came without warning. Krollian warships jumped into human space. They targeted the agricultural colony of New Eden, the breadbasket of human grain production. They targeted the mining colony of Proxima Prime, the source of human raw materials. They targeted the industrial hub of Terra Nova, the heart of human manufacturing. None of them reached their targets. Admiral Carter had anticipated every approach vector. His defense platforms picked up the Krollian fleet the moment they exited FTL. Human squadrons were already in position, waiting. The Krollians expected to catch human colonies unprepared. Instead, they flew into a kill box. New Eden's orbital defenses opened fire first. 3 Krollian cruisers were disabled before they could launch a single strike. The rest scattered, their formation broken. They never got close enough to bombard the surface. Proxima Prime was worse for the Krollians. The mining colony's defense grid was older, less advanced. But Admiral Carter had stationed a hunter-killer squadron behind the planet's moon. When the Krollians committed to their attack run, the human ships emerged from cover and tore into their flank. 5 Krollian vessels were destroyed. The rest withdrew in disorder. Terra Nova never saw combat. The Krollian battle group assigned to the industrial hub received the distress signals from the other attacks and turned back before they ever entered weapons range. Their morale was gone. Their coordination was shattered. Their grand offensive had failed before it truly began. The news reached Earth within hours. President Reston was briefed on the attacks. He was shown the damage assessments. The casualties were light. A few dozen dead. Some surface damage. Nothing that could not be repaired. He called an emergency session of the United Earth Council. The Krollian hegemony has attacked our colonies, President Reston said. They have failed. Our defenses held. Our fleet repelled them. But make no mistake, this was an act of war, and we will respond. Admiral James Carter stood. His face was hard. His eyes were cold. Mr. President, he said, I have spent my entire career preparing for this moment. I have studied Krollian tactics. I have analyzed their ships. I have trained our fleet to fight them. Today proved what I have always known. The Krollians are not the threat the Council believes them to be. They are bullies, and bullies have never known how to handle real resistance. President Reston addressed the galaxy that night. The Krollian hegemony attacked us without provocation, he said. They thought that force would bring us to our knees. They thought we were weak. They thought we would beg for mercy. They were wrong. We have shown the galaxy what humanity is made of. Our defenses held. Our fleet prevailed. The Krollians started this war, and we will finish it. We did not ask for this fight, but we will not apologize for winning it. Our conditions for returning to the Council remain the same. Full membership, removal of the censure, sanctions against the Krollian hegemony. Until then, humanity stands alone. The United Earth Fleet mobilized. Ships that had been recalled from Council space were refitted and rearmed. But the Krollians never mounted a second offensive. Their attack had been broken in a single day. Their fleet had limped home with losses they could not replace. Their economy, already collapsing without human trade, could not sustain a prolonged campaign. The war lasted 4 months. It was not a war of glorious battles. It was a war of attrition, of hunting, of slow and systematic destruction. The Krollians could not replace their losses. Every ship they lost was permanent. Every supply depot Admiral Carter destroyed was one they could not rebuild. He did not need to win a decisive battle. He only needed to keep taking pieces off the board until the Krollians had nothing left. They raided border colonies, hit-and-run strikes that did little damage and cost them ships they could not spare. They tried to draw the human fleet into a trap. Carter did not take the bait. He simply kept cutting, kept starving, kept hunting. The Krollian hegemony was defeated not by a single battle, but by 1,000 small cuts. Their fleet was in ruins. Their economy was in collapse. Their government was in chaos. They had started a war they could not win against an enemy they had never understood. For months after the first shot was fired, they surrendered. The Krollian hegemony surrendered. The formal instrument of surrender was signed on a human warship in orbit of a burned-out colony. The Krollian delegation did not look proud. They did not look defiant. They looked defeated. Admiral Carter accepted the surrender personally. He did not gloat. He did not celebrate. He simply took the document and nodded. The war is over, he said. The galaxy was stunned. The humans had not only survived, they had won. The Krollians had been exposed as a paper tiger, a species that had relied on intimidation and resource control, not actual strength. Humanity had proven that they were not to be trifled with. Chancellor Vorith sat in his private chambers. He stared at the stars drifting past his window. He had been chancellor for over 100 cycles. He had seen species come and go. He had seen crises come and go. He had always found a solution. But this time was different. The Krollians had started a war. The humans had won. The galaxy was in chaos. And the Council was powerless to do anything about it. He thought about his own legacy. He had served as Chancellor for over 100 cycles. He had presided over moments of great triumph and great tragedy. He had always believed that he was fair, that he was just, that he was serving the galaxy as best he could. But now he wondered, had he been fair? Had he been just? Or had he simply been maintaining the status quo, protecting the powerful, ignoring the weak? He had made a mistake. He should have fought harder. He should have used his authority to block the censure vote. He should have stood up to the Krollians and their allies. But he had not. And now the galaxy was paying the price. A year passed from the day Earth withdrew. It was the longest year in galactic history. The Zenthari medical system was in crisis. Hospitals that had been staffed by human doctors were closing. Patients who had been treated with human medicines were relapsing. Diseases that had been controlled for decades were spreading again. The Zenthari government was begging the humans to return. They had sent multiple messages to Earth, pleading with President Reston to reconsider. One Zenthari hospital on the colony world of Zenthar Prime sent a direct message to Devon Michaels. It was a plea from the hospital's director, a Zenthari named Theron Voss, who was the cousin of Ambassador Selena Voss. Ambassador Michaels, the message read, "I am writing to you as a healer, not as a politician. We have lost 70% of our medical staff. Our patients are dying. Diseases that we had eliminated are returning. We do not have the expertise to treat them. We do not have the medicines to cure them. We do not have the equipment to diagnose them. I know that you have been wronged. I know that the Council has treated you unfairly. But I am begging you, please send your doctors back. Please send your medicines back. Please do not let our people die because of the actions of a few." Devon read the message. He felt the weight of it. He knew that the Zenthari were innocent. He knew that they had been good allies to humanity. He knew that they were suffering because of the Krollians, not because of their own actions. But he also knew that the Council had to learn. They had to understand that they could not pick and choose which rules to enforce. They had to understand that justice was not optional. They had to understand that humans would not return until their conditions were met. He sent a response. It was brief. It was kind. It was firm. "Director Voss, I received your message. I am sorry for your suffering. I wish I could help. But the conditions for humanity's return have been stated. They are non-negotiable. The Council must meet them. Until then, we cannot return. I hope you understand. I hope you survive. I hope that when this is over, we can rebuild what we have lost." The Zenthari government was heartbroken. They had been humanity's closest allies. They had discovered humanity. They had helped humanity join the Council. They had defended humanity in countless debates. And now they were suffering because of humanity's absence. The Draxian government was barely functioning. Their data systems had failed completely. Records were lost. Communications were disrupted. Commerce had stopped. The Draxians, who had always prided themselves on their efficiency and organization, found themselves unable to govern. The Draxian ambassador, Morvith, sent a message to Chancellor Vorith. It was the first time in his 30-year career that he had sent a message without proper formatting. "Chancellor," the message read, "our systems have failed. We cannot govern. We cannot communicate. We cannot trade. Our civilization is collapsing. Please, do whatever it takes to bring the humans back. We cannot survive without them." Chancellor Vorith read the message. He read it twice. He had known the Draxians for his entire life. He had never seen them admit defeat. He had never seen them beg. Now they were begging. The Varikan economy had collapsed. Without human cargo ships, trade had slowed to a crawl. Supplies were not reaching the worlds that needed them. Colonies were being abandoned. The Varikan government was in chaos. Their ambassador, Vorex, resigned in disgrace. He could not bear to watch his civilization crumble. In his resignation speech, he said, "I have failed my people. I voted for the censure. I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought the humans needed to be taught a lesson. But I was wrong. The humans were not the ones who needed to be taught a lesson. We were the ones who needed to learn. And we have learned. But it may be too late." The Varikan people were divided. Some blamed the Council. Some blamed the humans. Some blamed themselves. But they all agreed on one thing. They needed the humans to return. The Luminari were suffering too. Their water purification systems had failed. Their aquatic cities were becoming polluted. Diseases were spreading. The Luminari government sent a message to Earth, begging for help. They offered to pay any price. They offered to support human membership in the council. They offered to do whatever it took. The Kryn were rationing water. Their climate control systems had failed. Their crops had withered. Their people were starving. They sent a message to Earth, asking for humanitarian aid. President Reston considered it, but he knew that any aid would weaken humanity's position. The council had to feel the full weight of human absence. He sent a message back. We will return when our conditions are met. Until then, we cannot help. It was the hardest message he had ever sent. And every species was running out of FTL drive cores. Ships were being grounded. Trade routes were being abandoned. Colonies were being cut off. The galaxy was fragmenting, worlds isolated from each other, trade networks collapsing, communication systems failing. The council held emergency session after emergency session. Ambassadors argued. They blamed each other. They blamed the Krollians. They blamed the humans. They blamed Chancellor Vorith. But no amount of blame could fix the problem. The problem was simple. The galaxy had taken humans for granted. And now the humans were gone. The council had no choice. Chancellor Vorith called for a delegation to be sent to Earth. The delegation was led by Ambassador Selena Voss of the Zenthari. It included Ambassador Morvith of the Draxians, Ambassador Vorex of the Varikans, Ambassador Solara of the Luminari, and representatives from a dozen other species. It did not include any Krollians. The Krollians had been excluded at Chancellor Vorith's order. We are going to Earth to negotiate, Chancellor Vorith told the delegation. We are going to ask the humans to return. We are going to give them what they want. What if they demand too much? Asked Ambassador Morvith. Chancellor Vorith looked at him. Then we will give them too much. Because without them, we have nothing. The delegation traveled to Earth in a Zenthari diplomatic ship. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, the delegation prepared their arguments, their proposals, their concessions. They knew that the humans held all the power. They knew that they had to offer something significant, but they did not know what the humans would demand. The delegation arrived on Earth on a warm spring morning. They were met by a delegation of human officials at the spaceport. The human officials were polite but reserved. They did not smile. They did not make small talk. They led the alien delegation to a waiting convoy of ground vehicles and drove them to Geneva. The meeting was held in the United Earth Council chamber. The chamber was a modern building of glass and steel, bathed in natural light. The walls were lined with screens showing the flags of every human world and colony. At the head of the room was a large table, surrounded by chairs. President Reston sat at the head of the table. Next to him sat Ambassador Devon Michaels. On his other side sat Admiral James Carter. Behind them stood human officers and aides, their faces neutral, their postures straight. The alien delegation sat across from them. Ambassador Voss at the head, her skin a calm shade of blue. Ambassador Morvith to her right, his skin a neutral green. Ambassador Vorex to her left, his feathers smooth and still. Mr. President, Ambassador Voss said, we have come to ask you to return to the Galactic Council. President Reston nodded. We have conditions. We expected that, Ambassador Voss said. She paused. Before we begin, I want to say something. I have known humanity for 180 years. I was there at first contact. I watched your species take its first steps into the galaxy. I have seen you grow and struggle and achieve. I have seen your scientists make discoveries that advanced the knowledge of the galaxy. I have seen your doctors heal the sick. I have seen your engineers build marvels that rival anything in the known universe. I have also seen you be dismissed. I have seen you be ignored. I have seen you be treated as less than you are. And I have been powerless to stop it. I want you to know that I voted against the censure. I spoke against it. I argued against it. But I was outvoted. The politics of the council are complex. The Krollians had allies. They had influence. They had resources that other species needed. I failed you. And for that, I am sorry. President Reston looked at her. He saw the sincerity in her eyes. He saw the regret. He saw the shame. Thank you, Ambassador Voss, he said. Your apology is noted. But it is not enough. We need action. We need change. We need the council to treat us as equals. We are prepared to do that, Ambassador Voss said. President Reston nodded. Then let us begin. He laid out the conditions one by one. First, humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, full voting rights, full veto power, full participation in all council decisions. We will no longer be junior members. We will be equals. Ambassador Voss nodded. That is acceptable. Second, the censure against Ambassador Michaels and the human delegation will be removed. It will be expunged from the record as if it never happened. There will be no mention of it in any council document. There will be no reference to it in any council proceeding. Agreed, Ambassador Voss said. Third, the Krollian hegemony will be sanctioned for its aggression. Ambassador Torvin Vox will be removed from the council. He will be barred from holding any position in the council or any member government. The Krollians will pay reparations for the attack on Ambassador Michaels and for the war they started against our colonies. Ambassador Voss hesitated. The Krollian sanctions were a difficult request. The Krollians would fight them. They would argue. They would threaten to leave the council themselves. But the alternative was the continued collapse of galactic civilization. Agreed, Ambassador Voss said. Fourth, the Krollian hegemony will open its mining rights to council oversight. The minerals that are essential for FTL drive core production will be distributed fairly among all council species. No single species will control critical resources that can be used for political leverage. Ambassador Voss's skin flickered with surprise. This was a demand she had not anticipated. That will be difficult, she said. The Krollians will not give up their monopoly willingly. That is not my concern, President Reston said. The galaxy has learned that allowing one species to control critical resources leads to abuse. The Krollians have used their monopoly to bully other species for centuries. That ends now. We will not return to a galaxy where one species can hold everyone else hostage. Ambassador Voss looked at her fellow delegates. Ambassador Morvith nodded slowly. His skin had shifted from green to a pale yellow, indicating deep thought. The Draxians support this condition. We have seen the damage that the Krollian monopoly has caused. Our civilization is collapsing because we cannot get the minerals we need to maintain our systems. If opening the mining rights is the price of human return, we will pay it. Ambassador Vorex of the Varikans nodded. His feathers were ruffled, a sign of stress. The Varikans support this condition as well. Our economy is in ruins. Our trade networks have collapsed. We cannot survive another year without human transportation. If opening the mining rights is what it takes, we will support it. Ambassador Solara of the LumniHFY spoke. Her voice was weak. Her skin was pale. Her people were suffering from waterborne diseases. The LumniHFY support this condition. We have nothing left to give. Our cities are dying. Our people are dying. We need the humans to return. Agreed, Ambassador Voss said. Fifth, humanity will retain the right to withdraw from the council at any time, for any reason, without penalty. We will not be bound by any rule that prevents us from leaving if we are treated unfairly. That is unprecedented, Ambassador Morvith said. No species has ever had that right. It would set a dangerous precedent. Other species might demand the same right. Then they should have it, President Reston said. Every species should have the right to leave a system that treats them unfairly. The fact that no species has ever asked for this right is proof that the system is broken. Ambassador Voss considered this. She thought about the implications. She thought about what it would mean for the council. She thought about what it would mean for the galaxy. Agreed, she said. The alien delegation exchanged glances. They had come to Earth expecting to negotiate. They had come expecting to compromise. They had come expecting a long and difficult process. But the humans had presented them with clear, non-negotiable demands. Those are our conditions, Devon Michaels said. He spoke for the first time. His voice was calm. His eyes were steady. The same eyes that had looked at Torvin in the council chamber. The same steady gaze that had not flinched when the hand came down. We did not arrive at these conditions lightly, Devon continued. We spent months debating them. We considered every option. We weighed every consequence. We knew that if we demanded too much, the council would refuse. We knew that if we demanded too little, we would be giving up the leverage we had fought so hard to gain. We believe these conditions are fair. They are not punitive. They are not designed to humiliate the council. They are designed to ensure that what happened to us never happens to any species again. We will need to consult with Chancellor Voreth, Ambassador Voss said. Take all the time you need, President Reston said. We are not going anywhere. But remember that every day you delay, the galaxy suffers. The delegation sent a message to Chancellor Voreth. They outlined the human demands. They explained the reasoning behind each one. They waited for his response. The response came 3 days later. Accept all conditions, Chancellor Voreth said. The Krollians will be dealt with. The humans will be given what they want. We thought they needed us. We were wrong. We needed them. Not for our grand councils or our mighty fleets, but for the endless daily work that keeps the galaxy running. The work we were too proud to do ourselves. I should have stood up to the Krollians years ago. I should have protected the humans. I failed. I will not fail again. The delegation returned to the council chamber in Geneva. They sat across from the human delegation. Ambassador Voss spoke. Mr. President, she said, the Galactic Council accepts your conditions. Humanity will be granted full membership. The censure will be removed. The Krollian hegemony will be sanctioned. Ambassador Torvin Vox will be removed. Mining rights will be opened to oversight. And humanity will retain the right to withdraw from the Council at any time. President Reston nodded. Then we have an agreement. Then we have an agreement, Ambassador Voss said. The news was transmitted across the galaxy. Humans celebrated. The Council species breathed a sigh of relief. The Krollians protested. But Chancellor Vorith was firm. The humans have proven something, he said. Not that they are superior. Not that they are exceptional. But that no species should be taken for granted. We assigned them the work we did not want, and when they left, we discovered that work was the foundation everything else rested on. The Krollian hegemony will accept the sanctions, or the Krollian hegemony will leave the Council. The choice is yours. The Krollians stayed. They had no choice. Without the Council, they had no trading partners. Without trading partners, they had no economy. Without an economy, they had no future. We will return one day, the Krollian leadership said. But they never did. Torvin Vox was removed from the Council. He was replaced by a younger Krollian named Thargvor. Tharg was different. He was calm. He was reasonable. He was willing to work with humans. He had been educated on a world that had strong trade ties with human colonies. He understood that humans were not to be underestimated. The sanctions were imposed. The Krollian hegemony paid reparations to the human delegation. The money was used to fund human education and infrastructure projects. The mining rights were opened to oversight. The monopoly was broken, and humanity returned to the Galactic Council. Devon Michaels walked back into the council chamber 6 months after he had walked out. This time, he walked in as the representative of a full member of the council. This time, the ambassador stood when he entered. Honorable Chancellor, Devon said, I am pleased to return to this chamber. Chancellor Vorith's skin shifted to a shade of blue. That was the Zenthari equivalent of a smile. Ambassador Michaels, the council welcomes you back. Devon took his seat. He looked around the chamber. He saw the ambassadors from a dozen species. They were looking at him differently now. There was respect in their eyes. There was caution. There was something that had not been there before. Fear. No, not fear. Respect. Humans had proven that no species should be taken for granted. They had proven that the work of servants could bring an empire to its knees. And they had proven that they would not be treated as second-class citizens. Devon Michaels had done what no ambassador had ever done. He had walked out of the council chamber. He had taken humanity with him, and he had brought them back on his own terms. That was the day Earth had enough. And that was the day the galaxy learned that humans were not to be underestimated. Devon served as humanity's ambassador for another 8 years. He retired at the age of 75. He was given a standing ovation in the council chamber when he announced his retirement. The ambassadors from a dozen species rose to their feet and applauded. Ambassador Voss of the Zenthari delivered a speech. She spoke of Devon's courage. She spoke of his dignity. She spoke of the day he was struck and did not fall. She spoke of the day he walked out of the chamber and took humanity with him. There are moments in history, she said, that define the character of a species. The moment Devon Michaels was struck and did not fall was such a moment. The moment he smiled was such a moment. The moment he walked out of this chamber was such a moment. He showed us that dignity is not about never being hurt. It is about how you respond to being hurt. Devon returned to Earth. He wrote a book about his experiences. He called it The Day Earth Had Enough. It became a bestseller across human space. Humans read it and felt proud. They read it and felt inspired. They read it and remembered that they were part of something greater than themselves. He died at the age of 89, surrounded by his family. His last words were simple: never apologize for being human. President Reston served 2 more terms. He was remembered as the president who stood up to the council. He died at the age of 92, surrounded by his children and grandchildren. His funeral was attended by delegates from a dozen species. Ambassador Voss of the Zenthari was there. Ambassador Tharg Vor of the Krollian hegemony was there. Chancellor Vorith sent a message of condolence. Admiral Carter continued to serve as the commander of the United Earth Defense Fleet. He oversaw the expansion of human space. Human colonies spread across 100 star systems. Human ships traveled to the edges of known space. Human ambassadors sat on the council as equals, their voices heard, their votes counted, their dignity respected. He became the most respected military commander in human history. He retired at the age of 70, a hero to his people and a legend to the galaxy. Ambassador Selena Voss of the Zenthari remained a close ally of humanity. She served as the Zenthari ambassador for another 20 years. She visited Earth every year. She considered Devon Michaels a friend. She attended his funeral and delivered a eulogy that made everyone in the room cry. Devon Michaels was not just a human, she said. He was the best of humanity. He was brave when bravery was dangerous. He was dignified when dignity was costly. He was patient when patience was painful. And he was strong when strength was needed most. I knew him for 30 years. I watched him grow from a young ambassador who was unsure of himself to a statesman who commanded the respect of the galaxy. I watched him be struck and rise again. I watched him be censured and walk out with his head held high. I watched him return and take his place among equals. He taught me that dignity is not about never being hurt. It is about how you respond to being hurt. He taught me that strength is not about never falling. It is about how you rise after you fall. And he taught me that no species should ever be judged by the work they do, but by the dignity with which they do it. I am proud to have known him. I am proud to have called him my friend. And I am proud to have watched him change the galaxy. She paused. Her skin shifted to a shade of blue, the Zenthari equivalent of a smile. Thank you, Devon, for everything. Torvin Vox disappeared from public life. He returned to the Krollian homeworld. He lived in obscurity. He died alone. No one attended his funeral. His name became a cautionary tale among Krollians, a reminder of what happened when arrogance overcame wisdom. The Krollian hegemony reformed itself. The old leadership that had supported Torvin's aggression was purged. A new generation of Krollian leaders rose to power. Leaders who understood that the galaxy was changing and that Krollians had to change with it. They began to treat humans with respect, not because they wanted to, because they had learned that humans would not tolerate anything less. Tharg Vor, the new Krollian ambassador, became one of the strongest advocates for human rights in the council. We made a mistake, Tharg said in an interview that was broadcast across the galaxy. My predecessor treated humans as inferior. He was wrong. Humans are not inferior. They are different, and different does not mean lesser. We have learned this lesson the hard way. We will not forget it. The interview was watched by billions. Humans watched it and felt vindicated. Krollians watched it and felt ashamed. Other species watched it and felt hope. The Krollian hegemony also invested in rebuilding its relationship with humanity. They established cultural exchange programs. They funded joint research initiatives. They sent delegations to Earth to apologize in person. It was not easy. There was anger. There was resentment. There was distrust on both sides. But over time, the wounds began to heal. Not completely, not entirely, but enough. The Galactic Council changed after the human withdrawal. The incident had shown that no species should be taken for granted, no matter how humble their role appeared. And it had shown that every species deserved to be treated with respect. New rules were put in place. Assaults on ambassadors became a serious offense, punishable by immediate removal from the council. Species could not claim systems without documentation, and species that controlled critical resources could no longer use them as leverage for political gain. The incident also changed the way the council operated. Junior members were given more rights. Their proposals were given more consideration. Their voices were heard. The council established a new committee, the Committee on Species Rights, whose job it was to ensure that every species was treated fairly. The first chair of the committee was a human. It was Devon Michaels. The humans had changed the galaxy, and it had started with a single ambassador who had been struck in the council chamber, who had bled, who had smiled, and who had walked out. Please like and subscribe for more stories about humanity and the galaxy.